So before we get into the episode, and I promise I won't interrupt you again, I just wanted to ask you, do you really struggle to know what to post online? Are you someone that wants to build their personal brand but has no idea where you should be building it? The Get Clout platform gives you a personalized personal branding strategy that tells you who you should be speaking to, what you need to be saying to them, where you should be posting and how often you should be posting it. And we also send you tailored, personalized content prompts every single day to let you know exactly what you should be posting and where you should be posting it. If you want to get involved, go to get.clout.com and I will see you in our exclusive community where everyone else on the channel is talking about all their wins and how they can scale their personal brand. Stef, fuck being humble, Sword Williams, welcome to the Branded podcast. First of all, before we get in, I need everyone to see your coat. The fuck being humble coat.
Happy to show it, very proud of it, I'll be honest. Don't look too closely at the details.
Cool. Okay, cool. And then we'll go.
Can I take it off now?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
It's
my and this jacket is a hot jacket. Like it's
it's that like space
look
suit.
at the shit on the inside.
No, but you think it's so good.
Okay.
I'm so excited to have you on this podcast. I've wanted to have you on. We've been talking about this since.
Have we started?
Yes.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
No,
do you want to do that again?
No.
Sorry. Okay. Oh God.
I love it. I love the rawness of it. That's why this podcast is so much fun, because it's not scripted. So
sure.
we just wing it and see what happens. But we met at I've been following you for, I reckon, about a year and a half. Well, probably longer now, a year and a half before we actually met at the NatWest Business Show Live. And you are one of the most engaging, interesting, funny and down-to-earth people that I've ever seen speak in real life. And as soon as we met, I was like, first of all, I need her on the podcast, but second of all, we're going to be friends because I just think you're fucking amazing. Let's go back to the beginning though. Fuck being humble. What the fuck does that mean?
So first of all, thank you. That's very kind of you. Like, you've been in the space for longer than I have, and I've always admired your work as well. So I'm very happy to be here and to be building our friendship. I guess with Fuck Being Humble. So I set up Fuck Being Humble in 2018, and I actually did talk about this morning where I said, like, I was sick of people feeling overlooked, undervalued, and unappreciated. And when I say people, I meant myself.
Yeah.
And it was this feeling of just, working through different roles, working for different companies, being promised things, them not happening, feeling like maybe the managers I worked for weren't actually advocating for me. There was just this like continuous disappointment I was feeling in my career. And I kind of realized that the mistakes I was making was putting my career in the hands of other people. And I needed to take more control, and I needed to advocate for myself more. I needed to make smarter decisions. I needed to leave when things weren't right. Like, I needed to be clearer in my value and understand how to make sure that I communicate that. And so when I started Fuck Being Humble, really interestingly, like, I didn't start it to start a business at all. Like, I was working full-time in advertising. I absolutely loved my job at the time. Things were going well. What I wanted to do more of was public speak. Like, I loved the idea of hosting cool events in East London and meeting people. That really was it. And I was going to loads of events where I was just seeing the same people, male, pale, stale, on panels, on conversations, like on big events. And I was like, where are all the cool people that I meet on a daily in London? And why are they not speaking on these stages? And it was a combination of they don't get invited, or they're not speaking about their work or speaking on stages yet because they're not expert enough, because they've not been validated by other people. And so it's a combination of like my feelings towards my experiences, my observation of the industry, and also the fact that I just became this natural agony aunt to my friends. So I moved jobs 6 times in 7 years. I do talk about it very openly.
We love a squiggly career at Carl.
Such a squiggly career. I was a career hopper, like 100%.
But I'm very pro that.
Same. I'm like, you don't pay me my value, I'll go find somewhere else.
And I employ people. Like, I'm an employer and I'm still very pro that.
I think most employers need to see that that's the landscape of where the work is at these days, to be honest. But because I'd done this experience, I had a lot of experience in pitching myself, promoting myself, sorting out CVs. I had a website, I had a business card. I had all these things quite early on. And so I naturally was just the help to a lot of friends in my life as well. So it was a combination of all of those emotions and the fact that the careers industry was so boring. Like, nothing new had been said in a really long time. It was very traditional messaging. Like, I always joke, it's like shoot for the stars, or like level up, or like, there's anything that was like, tell me something different.
Yeah.
So I wanted to create something that had a bit of personality, that had some character, that resonated with people, and that ultimately would flip the narrative and the discussion around professional development. And my goal was, having worked in the creative industry, how do I get cool creative people to career events that they don't think, oh, this is a waste of time, or oh, this is boring. And the vehicle was fuck being humble.
Back to your career in advertising.
Yeah.
You said you felt really overlooked and undervalued. Like, it talked me through that. Like, what was the kind of actuality of that?
Yeah.
Like, you're getting overlooked for promotions, or like, what does that look like?
So I would say I'm quite a high performer, high achiever. Like, every role I've ever got into, I've always given 110%. Like, my weakness was I get too attached to my work. Like, that is 100% me.
I
like,
can so relate to that.
No two ways about it. That is me as a person.
I'll never forget this. Sorry to interrupt you. I will never forget this. So when I worked in recruitment, I went from like literally entry-level recruiter to team leader in about 10 months.
Yeah.
Just because billings in recruitment, like, you bill more, you get promoted. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're good at managing people or not, but they will promote you. And I'll never forget, my manager at the time said to me, "You've got high achiever syndrome." And I was like, "What does that mean?" She goes, "Well, either you're going to burn out or get bored and quit." And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That
That's
basically
relatable.
summarizes what you just said.
And I think with that, I had a stream of not great bosses. The first job I ever had was with the most toxic, horrendous, awful boss I've ever experienced in my life. Like, he would say, "You're not worth the air I breathe." He would swear at us, like, on the way to meetings and expect us to, like, show up. He was the most erratic, unstable, inappropriate boss I've ever experienced in my life.
Wow.
And that was my first job out of university. And I was crying every day, every week. But unfortunately, it was a time where people around me would be like, "Well, you've got to stick out the job for 12 months.
Yeah.
Syndrome also. And after 11 months, I was too distraught with it all. And I applied for 3 jobs and I got all 3 offers.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that I will never, ever settle for an environment that's not safe, first of all, but that had the potential to completely shatter my confidence.
Yeah.
And so with that, I guess, awareness that I built quite early on and that thick skin, not only was I ambitious, but I did have resilience and I did have thick skin. So when I was thrown in the deep end a lot in companies, I would come back swimming, and I did really good jobs. So I was very high achieving and high performing at my level. And I remember getting that in feedback sessions. They'd be like, "You're at the highest level of your level of talent in the company and you're doing extremely well. You're on track for promotions." And the one example that really sticks out was, it was like, yep. Gets to that end of the year and they were like, "Oh, no, you're so far off getting that promotion." And it was gaslighting before I knew the phrase of it. And I just remember the whole world, like, I just felt like either I'd made it up in my head or they were lying to me. And I remember going through all the performance review updates and it was like best achieving, top levels and everything. Like, and it said in writing, on track for manager position. And it was just pulled away. And the reality was, I think it was to do with finances. Because when I then got another job offer and I was like, well, I'm going to go elsewhere then, all 4 members of senior staff tried to stop me. Individual days, individual meetings, the finance director, the CEO, the MD, and my boss. My boss actually rejected my notice. She said,
"Can you do that?"
Apparently so. She said, "I don't think you've had time to think about this." Which is hilarious because I'd obviously got another job lined up.
Very fucking patronising as well.
So, but again, I was still quite junior, and I was like, "Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe I haven't." Then I went away. I was like, "What? Why did I let that happen?"
Yeah.
And so, when I say that, it was that there were a few other things, like my boss at the time was absent for a period of time, and so I didn't get any extra support. So I was running an account that was went up to about 500,000, and I was working on 23 projects alone, and I was 24. And it was obviously trusting that they believed I was good enough. But I remember very little check-ins with people. And I remember getting
it's because you just cracked on and did it.
End of that role, and somebody checking in and being like, "Sorry, you're doing this alone?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have been for like the last 6 months." And they were like, "This is a lot." And I was like, "I know it's a lot." And it was a combination of, like early burnout, I think, seeing that I was being overworked and underpaid was the truth of it. And I'd been gaslit. And it was just a weird combination. But unfortunately, and I do recognize that maybe I could be the problem in some of these spaces, because it did keep repeating. And maybe it is this high achieving syndrome situation where, I'd go to companies, I'd get promises, and then it would fall through or things wouldn't happen. And I guess my hunger was going at a speed of, if you don't do this now, I'll go find somewhere. And I had built up that confidence because each time I was interviewing, I was getting the offers. So I kind of knew that I would go find another job in most places. And I felt quite confident, again, quite early on in my career. So it was a combination of like different experiences. I had a boss that would like very often like put me down publicly, like mock me, which I had to like flag her on and be like, it's really inappropriate what you're doing. And I would hate to think that the rest of the team would speak to me like that. And again, it was like this, oh, I didn't realize I was doing it sort of thing, even though it was quite intentional. So there were
Why
just,
do you think she was doing that?
I don't know. I don't want, like, I don't know why people make behaviors, but I do feel like there are situations when I think for women bosses, sadly, my experience have been, I've worked really hard to get this spot.
And you got to stay in your lane.
You've got to stay in your lane, and there's not a lot of room for you, and I don't want you to take my position. And I do get that. I do get that. All the women that came before me did knock down doors, and I'm very grateful that they did that. But there was at that time when I was working, there was very much you just stay where you are, please, like stop.
I had that as well. I remember, it's funny you were saying your first boss was really toxic. Mine was too. She was mental. Like, I'm very grateful for the experience. So I very rarely talk about it in how horrendous it was, because I look back, and you said like it gave you resilience and stuff. And I really look back at that experience and I'm like, it was horrendous at the time. And literally the minute it was 12 months up, I was like, notice, gone, same as you. Because I was told to stick it out for a year, right? But because she was so erratic, because she was so crazy, because she would swear at you and shout at you and cry and like throw things, literally physically would throw things sometimes.
So did mine. He threw a book at me and it missed me. It hit the wall.
Mental. But like, that was like, I was almost like, oh, well, this is what corporate life is like.
Yeah, this is what it's like.
And same thing, like you do really, really well because you want to, I wonder whether there's like some kind of personal issues there where I'm like, I just want to be good enough. And so you like seek the validation of the person in charge, but like it's never enough, is it?
Yeah, I think there is partly that, but I do also think when you're at the start of your career, you'll do anything to make a good impression.
Yeah, I think, and there is a naivety there as well. And I also think when we entered the job market, there was less available information about what was appropriate and what was not. You were just kind of going off the information that you had available. Like social media existed, but it didn't really exist. Like it was
not in the space of like online forums talking about workplace behavior or community groups supporting you, burnout, gaslighting, all these things. It wasn't discussed anywhere near as much as it is now.
No, and we didn't have, even if it was, we would have to go and seek that information. Whereas now it just appears in our feed and we're like, oh my God, that did happen to me. And like someone else has experienced that.
It's not just
like
me.
Even now, right, you're saying you had this horrendous toxic box. I'm like, me too, at the first job as well, straight out of uni. We had the same experience. So like, I think that's one of the wonderful byproducts of social media, albeit there are many negatives, is that we are able to have access to information that we just simply wouldn't otherwise have access to. Back to you. Sorry, in resonating points. This woman that put you down, I do think that is like a very common thing. I mean, I had that in my career as well. It was like, I have trodden on so many men to get to this position of power. You are not coming near me. So I'm going to make sure damn well that you don't even get a sniff in from anyone else and put you down in public. That used to happen all the time. And I wonder, like, I think I have a lot of empathy for women who feel like that, because like you said, they've literally had to elbow their way to the top. But at the same time, don't you want to make sure that never happens to any other women in the future? And so wouldn't it be better to put the ladder back down? That's something that I feel really strongly about.
Else,
and I think you do
I also
too.
didn't want their job. Like I wasn't gearing for their job.
Like insecurity.
Trust me when I say I don't want to deal with the stuff that you're dealing with. I wasn't after that. I was in my own lane, wanting to get to my point actually. And one of my most favorite managers was actually Kat Towers. So big shout out to her if she's listening. But I speak highly about her in the book. I speak highly about her in all conversations because it was the first manager who would really advocate for me. If we were in a meeting and I'd shared an idea with her, she'd be like, that wasn't my idea, it was all Steph. Like she would always do that. She'd push for me to get on all the trips. She was the one that told me like, your work identity isn't your only identity. Like, go explore ideas, pitch things, go do it. Like, I want to see you do all these great things. And she was so refreshing. One of the things I loved the most about it with her actually was she was a senior account manager on a contract. So she was freelance. So she was getting a better rate than if she was working full time. And I remember looking, being like, why aren't you a director? Because you're just amazing. She went, I don't want that job. She was like, they have to deal with all the crap. They have to, and she was like, I'd much rather do a job that I enjoy on my terms than fall into that pattern. And I remember looking at her, and I think I was about 24, 25 at this point, and being like, that's really like iconic really for me, because what you're doing is you're setting your version of what a career looks like. And the best part to her story was she was actually very culturally influential, and she knew all the latest drops. She still does. She's incredible. I always go to her for ideas. And when she wanted to actually eventually get a full-time job at the company, she didn't get asked for the account director job. She made up a completely new job title, which was head of culture. And they signed it off within 24 hours because they knew how good she was. And having her as a female role model, as a boss, was like, and a friend, and she still is a really good friend like 7 years later, was so valuable for me at the starting point of my career, or the early stages of my career, because she showed me that it didn't need to be competitive. There were lots of options actually, and what you want and I want are very different. So it's okay that we're in the same room together. And I think that's what I'd love more women to advocate and push.
But also there's more than enough business and career to go around.
100%.
It's so like, I genuinely believe the people at the top don't compete, they collaborate. And I know that for a fact because one of our direct competitors is Great Influence. Run by Ash Jones, and we chat all the time.
He's great.
I saw him a few weeks ago. We had a coffee. We spent 2 hours trading war stories, talking about war wounds. Like, what are you finding in the market? What am I finding in the market? Because we don't see, like, yeah, we're competitors on paper, but actually he's a fucking amazing guy running an awesome business. And there's lots of commonality there. Like, why wouldn't you want to collaborate with someone who's going through exactly the same things as you?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, I agree.
I think from a career perspective as well, like, why wouldn't you, back to your point about your previous boss, why wouldn't she want to support you? You know, like, regardless of whether you wanted her job or not, you're going to have experienced similar things that she's experienced. So doesn't it make sense to want to bond over that instead of fight about it?
I think what she embodies, and she still does though, is the quiet confidence. So she wouldn't be like the loudest, bolshiest person in the room, but she knew she was really good and she knew her value. And I guess that's almost where we worked kind of like yin and yang in a way, because I probably am a bit more louder and I'd be like, I'll tell you how good I am sort of thing. But she didn't see that as a conflict or a problem. Often when we see people who are confident at work, we're like, oh God, they're so overbearing. And actually it's generally because they embody something that you wish you were more like. And I think what I loved about our dynamic was she knew how to leverage those skills when we were working with clients and stuff like that, and be like, yeah, Steph, you pitch the idea because you'll do a better job than me. And that was really refreshing, rather than it needing to be this like top down, I'm holding you in a certain position.
I'm in the senior, so you have to like,
completely different relationship.
Awesome. Like, what a gift to have a boss like that.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for her.
So that leads me really lovely into the book. Lovely? Is that even a way of saying it? Leads me
nicely.
really nicely. Lovely Lily. Into the book. So Fuck Being Humble starts out as, I guess, kind of a way of you reaching people and connecting with people.
It was an Instagram page. It was an Instagram page. That really was it. I made like a crappy website on Wix, firstly, which got criticised in the press, which was hilarious. But I made a bad website on Wix, an Instagram account, but the ambition was the events. That was all I had to focus on. So
so you start the crappy Wix website that gets slated in the press. We'll get into that later. And you start an Instagram page. What happens next?
So I started in June 2018, and I started posting things like, fuck being humble, you know, be the loudest person, like started like sharing these posts. And predominantly I was like just asking my mates to reshare it on their stories, reposting it on my own stories, telling people I'm building this up. And the big catalyst that got the ball moving really was I did a LinkedIn article, and it was titled Why I'm Launching a Self-Promotion Platform Called Fuck Being Humble. And it kind of went like LinkedIn viral for me at that time. I had like no followers, no one knew who I was. in the sense that like people at work knew, but I didn't have an industry reputation. And it had got like, I think like 500 likes or something, which some of my posts don't get that now. So that was quite good at the time. Someone from the White House.
But for an article as well.
Someone from the White House commented on it and was like, this is incredible. We need you to come give a talk at our offices. And I was like, what? Like these comments were just coming through. And I think what had happened was I'd hit a moment where LinkedIn has been very monologue-y for a while, let's be honest. I always say it can be quite dry, corporate. I love LinkedIn, biggest cheerleader, but the collection of stuff that's on there can be very samey. And I wrote this article and I sort of referenced the confidence gap, the study that showed that women are more likely to say they can do 6 out of 10 things, whereas men, they say they can do 10 out of 10 when they can only do half of that, if anything. So I referenced that, which I think obviously struck a chord. I mean, there's typos in that article now. Like it wasn't a perfectly written piece or anything, but it was the announcement.
But that's sometimes the best content. It's
real.
And
it's still online. I haven't edited it or changed anything. And it went online, and lots of people commented, liked, engaged there. And then all of a sudden I got an email from like BBC World News and they were like, do you want to come and speak on air tomorrow? And I was like, what? And I was working full time at the start as well. So I went on BBC World News, had the most hilarious interviewer. I can't remember his name, but he did the Talking Business show.
Amazing.
And was notorious for being extremely high energy, quite literally in your face. Like, I'll get the clip and I'll send it to you because it's hilarious. And he was like, so why do you think men are better at self-promoting than women? Why do you think millennials are better than this? And he was like almost like shouting at me. Like he was very intense. And I was very like stage fright. My first piece of, I guess.
I mean, you did say you like being thrown in the deep end.
Yeah. And I've never had any form of media training, anything like that. So that was an experience. Then there was a woman from the Times who wrote a double page spread on me. So huge double page spread. And again, like this momentum was coming, and I was like, I've not even run an event. Like I have no idea if what I'm about to say is going to land. But here's what I'm thinking: the interview you will find very funny. So she'd asked me to review her social media channels and her online presence, and give any advice on how she could improve her her social presence or her online presence. And when I got there, we had this interview, and note self, I had a couple of glasses of wine. Never do that when you're having an interview thing. But anyway, we live and we learn. And in it, very candidly, as I am, I call myself a tough love agony Ann. I'm very direct. I'm like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Don't come to me if you want something sugarcoated. And I just said to her, look, it's so great to meet you in person. Like I can feel your energy. I think you're amazing. So, but when I look at your online channels, you've got no personality. Like it doesn't come through. And she opens the double page spread with, you've got no personality, says Stef Sword Williams. And my stomach dropped. Right. I was like, and the title of the article was, can I boast and brag like a millennial?
Oh my god.
So I didn't know, all I knew that she was going to do this piece. And so the piece goes, and it's like, there's just little things that I said out in passing. They were like, what do people think about the name? And I kind of said to me like, oh, well, my mum doesn't get it. And like, my mum does get it. But then my mum was calling me like, why have you said that? I don't get it in the news.
Like classic
just
press,
like all of
this.
And this story, it was like, I was reading it from one side of to the double page spread. I'm like, when is it going to get better? And then in the very final paragraph, she's like, all this, I guess like she was analysing self-promotion and whether it's needed, blah, blah, blah. And she essentially was saying, all this aside, I think what Stef's saying is really important. And I think she's going to go on to do great things. And I really respect and rate Marissa Bate, the journalist who wrote the article at the time, because she was definitely one of the first people to see the potential in what I was trying to say. And so that happened. And then it was kind of that kind of slow. People were talking about it before I'd even done that thing. And then I started getting call-ups to do a book. So I would say I launched in June. The article came out in June. Then I was on the BBC World News and Times in July. And in August, I was getting call-ups to do a book. And all of this, I was like, when the book call-ups came, I was like, no, don't be ridiculous. Like, I can't write a book. I'm not a writer. And I guess everyone saw Fuck Being Humble and they were like, that's a great title for a book.
That is a great, by the way, it is a great fucking book.
I'm really glad that I went with the title. I'm proud of it. And it, it's Marmite. People love it or hate it, but the people who don't like it, I don't need to
But it's so you.
entertain. It is very me.
I think that's why I love it so much. Because I came across the book first and then I came across you and then I met you and I was like,
all comes together.
I was like, this is personal branding 101.
Oh, that makes me happy.
Encompasses
everything that you are, like even if you didn't talk about what it is that you talk about, I would have still said, yeah, makes sense. Makes total sense. I'm
Well,
obsessed.
then I guess that shows a good personal brand.
You have a great personal brand.
Great. I appreciate you saying that. Sometimes I need reminding. But
Words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation, my love language. But yeah, and so when they asked me to write a book, I was like 3 publishers got into, I think 3 publishers and an agent. And I didn't know the field. And it was all just a bit full on and strange. And I was like, I just need to run an event first. Like, let me see how this goes before I commit to any of these things. And the first event went really well. It was intimate. It was about 30 people. I delivered a workshop style talk, and then we had a panel. I managed to get the drinks sponsored. Like, my friend DJ'd, so it didn't feel like a corporate event. And it was, like, I'd put posters around the room, but it was all very lo-fi. It was very like rough and ready, scrappy, which is very much still to this day my kind of brand in a way. And then the next event got more like 50 to 60 people. And then the third event, which was January at this point now, attracted like 180 people.
Wow.
And it was all word of mouth because I didn't put any advertising or anything like that. And I remember seeing this huge crowd of people and looking out and being like, this is bigger than just me. Mm-hmm. This is bigger than London events, basically East London events. And that was when I picked up the phone and said, let's explore this book. What would it be? I wrote the proposal in from January to February, submitted it in February because I went to Thailand, and I remember checking my emails, trying to stay to like, has anyone, not knowing that it takes a while for book proposals to get picked up. So I think we closed the deal in May. There were 4 publishers that were interested, and then I had 8 months to write it alongside my full-time job, in which I did. And that was the journey to the book.
Which has now sold over 10,000 copies.
Yeah.
Which is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
You should be so, like I think that is such a achievement.
Thank you. Yeah, it was, I mean, it's like I haven't really asked that much for me, becoming an author it is incredible. I'm very proud of it. And I've actually just signed a second book deal, which I'm really excited about. But it wasn't the goal. It wasn't, I'm not measuring myself on whether I'm a Times bestseller or whether I'm the best author on Amazon. It's an incredible asset and tool and addition to the great things that I do. But I've been quite grounded with the success of it, I guess, because it's not the area that I'm measuring my whole identity on, I guess. And so when I found out, I think it was like last year that it had hit over 10,000 sales, that was a moment actually. And Graham Ulcott, who's also an author who wrote Productivity Ninja, he actually commented on my post saying, you do know only 1% of authors do this. And I think that was a bit of a moment where I was like, I didn't know that, but I appreciate you for telling me this. So yeah, it's amazing. The reality was when the book came out, it came out in the pandemic, lol. So like, what's a girl to do trying to launch a book? Like, it was when we could only have social gatherings of 30 people. So I had a friends and family party and I didn't get to do a book tour. I had to do everything online. It was difficult. And so the reality was the initial sales weren't what we anticipated. But because I'm a public speaker and I deliver talks, let's say on average, maybe 5 to 10 talks a month, I am promoting that book every single day, every single month for the last 3 years. So I think where I may not have reached the initial spike in sales, the fact that I've continuously been tooting my own horn, promoting my book, speaking about it, has meant my consistent monthly sales have actually been really positive. So yeah, I'm really proud of it. But it does feel, that experience of it coming out in the pandemic really did take away from that journey of becoming an author, which is why I'm looking forward to the second time
I was going to say the second time around, hopefully you get to enjoy that experience a bit more. And we hit 50,000.
Well, let's see. I think again, it's like a big reason I do that is because when I worked in advertising, I had targets set. And because I worked in new business development, it was those kind of like, you'll get performance pay based on these things. When I didn't hit those targets, my self-worth went so low.
Yeah,
so I said to myself, when I run my business, I don't really set targets now for anything, if I'm honest. And that might not be great business acumen, but in my head, I know what I need to earn each month to pay my rent. I don't have a team. I don't have high outgoings. In fact, you'll love this. Had a call with my accountant the other day. He said, the most expensive thing in your business is you.
I love
and
that.
I was like, I should hope so. I'm the only person running it. But I think for me, it was like doing all of this and really thinking about how can I make sure that I've totally lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
I don't know. But one of the things I was thinking about when you were just talking was
I love the
I
quick
think
segue.
it's so important and inspiring, actually. I remember when we first met, you said to me, I don't really have any interest in running a team. I don't want a team. I'm quite happy. I was like, fucking refreshing. I love that so much because so many people are like, I need to build a big team. And I fell into that trap last year. Actually, I was saying to you before we started recording, I scaled way too fast, caused loads of fucking problems. I hated working here, even though it's my business, for a year, which was miserable. And I think there is a huge amount of power in going, actually, what do I want from not just from my business, because not everyone listening to this runs a business, but what do I want from my career?
Yeah.
And then doing that.
Yeah.
And I feel like you embody that.
Yeah. Sorry, I realized what I was trying to say before, which is this links back to that, which is I don't set targets because I don't want to make myself feel bad if I don't reach them. And so everything I do is more exciting and it's like, let's see where we go with that. And that sits under the umbrella of setting my own rules on how I run a business. And on the point of like having a team, I was at 100 Shoreditch the other day. I was doing some work and I heard this guy talking to what I assume was his investor. And this guy was awful, this investor. He was like, you need to be more ferocious. And he was like, I'll go in there and I'll pump his tires and I'll pump your tires too. And you just make it bling and I'll make it sing. And I was like, I want to be sick in my mouth. And I just sat there like, wow.
I love 180 Strand. You hear some wild
I'm so glad that I didn't give a piece of my pie
business
to
away.
anyone else, essentially, because what I've realized, and the people say this about like apps and stuff like that, is can you do a version that doesn't rely on other people? And that's what I've done. And of course, I possibly could have been like world domination by now if I had a team of hundreds of people. But the reality of that, of managing people, hiring, all of that, I've done it. I don't want to do it again. And I'm very happy being the one-woman show, having no investment, making the deals I make alone, actually, and knowing 100% that I did it by myself. It's not to say that I don't have the odd meltdown, like, God, I wish I had a team right now. Like, I just took my business out to the States. I've been doing it for the last year. Would be really nice to have someone help me carry some books from event to event, you know, like I don't have an assistant. Like, it would be nice sometimes to have that. But I also know what I gain from not following everyone else's business model path, which is my own happiness and my freedom. So I will like die on this hill that you should make the business that works for you. Otherwise, what's the point in starting your business?
That I had to learn that the hard way last year. I wonder whether there's a certain level of pressure that people get put under. Like, and I'm sure you get this all the time. People are like, oh my God, you're smashing it. Like, oh my God, wow, like well done. And I had that last year. And that sort of fed this part of my ego that was like, shit, I need to keep growing then because everyone else has got all this expectation that I'm going to be this big business. And so of course I have to like be this big business. And it wasn't until I had probably like a mini meltdown, like a bit of a mentee bee in August last year where I was like, this does not make me happy. And like, I don't enjoy this. And I'm dreading going back to work after this holiday with my children.
Yeah.
And I've never had that before since starting Clout. Like I've loved every like waking second of it. It's like, I have to change something.
Yeah.
And so I did.
And I think it's important that you've seen it, you've identified it and you're changing it now. Because I think so many people sit in situations for way too long.
Because they have the expectation of other people.
Yeah. And I think, you know, someone said to me once like, oh, why didn't you want to start a proper business? I said, what do you mean? She's like, you know, like investment and a team. I was like, I run a proper business. Thank you very much. I run a very successful business, actually. And actually that person went on to like have a total breakdown and not actual breakdown, but like really struggled with their own business and thought it was really fascinating. I was like, there is an expectation and there is like a commentary about what makes a business, what makes an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, like all of these things. Yeah. And actually it's like ultimately, so what people often say and project to you is what they are missing out on their own lives. And I think what I've learned very quickly with my business model, it's like I'm a one-woman show, I charge high and I work less. Yeah. Like I think I've cracked the business model code if I'm honest, and I'm not stressed. I'm not exhausted.
And you love what you do.
And I love what I do. And And I have, don't get me wrong, every founder has a time in every year, I think, where you're like, oh gosh, how many times can I keep saying this? Or how do I keep doing this? Like, you know, there is a moment. I would say it comes January time for me. I struggle in January. We're just normal humans. But I do think the way in which you structure your business massively affects how much you enjoy the work that you do.
And how much you enjoy it affects how well you do.
Exactly. It literally all goes round in one big circle.
It is funny though, this whole like definition of success, because the world, like I always think this whenever I see headlines come out with like all of, you know, like Forbes and Harvard Business Review or whatever, and they're like, so-and-so's raised 20 million pounds in funding, like, woo, well done. But then where are the companies that are like, we did 2 million pounds in profit or 200,000 pounds in profit? And it's like all of these companies getting funding have never made a penny. But like we're all cheering for the investment.
They're also severely unhappy.
Because we're all cheering for the investment.
Going for investment is, from what I hear,
sure
everybody says is like a second job. It's so draining. You're constantly wrapped up in what other people value you at.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's also, like, I make a joke quite commonly that I don't ask for feedback. I just ask for a positive review. And everyone laughs at me like, only you would do that. And I'm like, but do you know what? I live quite a happy life for it. Like, I don't ask on how I could improve.
Yeah.
You'll tell me if I've done something wrong and I'll take it on board.
Yeah.
But when I ask for feedback, what I'm asking for is, what did you love about it? What was the audience reaction? Would you recommend me? And what did everyone gain from it? I'm not asking, how can I do better in your eyes? And I know that may sound quite like self-indulgent, but I'm not sat there tearing apart my self-worth or my identity because somebody somewhere said, oh, you spoke too fast. Oh, I wouldn't have said it like that, you know? And I think the same goes with like, a lot of what we see in terms of what's press-worthy is actually like, is it? Or is the fact that I was able to go on like 8 holidays last year and not be stressed, isn't that more exciting? Isn't that what people would like to work towards? And I do think what we think is newsworthy versus what is actually a happy life are two very different things.
I completely agree. This is the happiest I've been in my entire life, and it's also the least stressed I've been, and it's also the one time in my life where I haven't had a target of like, I need to hit a certain figure.
That's honestly, so the one mindset shift that I say, or I started saying, so it was last year when I moved to Paris, I said to myself, and it came from, so not last year, the year before was an extremely good financial year for Fuck Being Humble. And I was like, whoa, this is great. Particularly March, International Women's Day. I was just like getting deal after deal, brand partnerships. It was like, wow. And I said, well, I have to do this next year, but bigger and better. And obviously the next year came around and I didn't. Last year wasn't as successful as the year before financially. And it was that pivot. And I felt upset, obviously, because I'd set this unrealistic expectation. And actually, it was that moment where I thought to myself, why do I have to do this bigger and better? And so the reframe that I've been saying to myself is when something great happens, I say to myself, if this is the only time this happens in my career, I am so bloody proud of me right now. Like 16-year-old me would be buzzing if you had told me this was going to happen. And that just helps me stay more grounded. It's like anything else is a bonus, is a much nicer way to look at things than I have to hit 100 grand every month.
I completely agree with that. It's so funny. The beginning of this year, I took myself on a solo holiday and I was like, I need a reset. Like last year, I kicked my ass. I need like just 7 days by myself, rethink life, ride some horses, swim in the sea.
I do it every year.
Yeah.
7 days solo. I'm going to do it next week.
It's amazing.
It's needed. It's like Bill Gates' Think Week.
Yeah, he just goes and reads in a cabin and drinks Coca-Cola, doesn't he? Don't know if that's really my vibe, but like definitely being by the sea with some sun on my skin and like reading a couple books. Yeah, of course. Sure. Midday, obviously. But like I think there was so much value in that for me because it really did align everything back to what we're talking about here, which is instead of measuring the success of the business against what you achieve financially, which might be your drivers. And I'm not saying that it's not the right driver. For some people it's fine. But for me, it was more about like, what do I actually want to do? Like what makes me happy? And the kind of conclusion that I came to was I'm happiest when I have no expectation. Yeah. And in everything, no expectation of like work, no expectation of my dating life, no expectation of like, oh, if I meet that person, what is going to come? Like I've stopped worrying about what things that haven't happened yet. And that's so fucking freeing.
Yeah. Expectations set us up for disappointment.
100%. And also for failure, I think sometimes because you don't expand your thinking or expand your actions because you're worried that if you do, the fall is going to be significantly more than if you don't.
Yeah.
And so if you go into things going, well, I don't know what's the other side of that cliff, so let's just fucking see how we go.
Yeah.
I think you open yourself up to so many more opportunities and also more likelihood of doing well at what you're doing.
I think it is about giving yourself credit for things. So I pitched a project, I got it, and I was going to bed manifesting a wedding budget because I recently got engaged.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And I was like holding my fiance's hand and I was like,
if anyone's seen that video,
wedding
by the way,
budget, 50 grand. Sorry.
Your wedding video is amazing. I watched it on your
My engagement.
Yeah. He did very well.
He did. We were living in Paris, so he did a good job of lining it all up around Paris. But I was holding his hand every night at bed. I was like, manifest a wedding budget, 50 grand this fall. Not that it needs to be 50 grand, but just like would be nice. And it was nowhere near that, what I got for this deal. And I was disappointed, really disappointed. And for a multitude of reasons, which I won't go into the full details on, but it took for a friend to go, Steph, stop being ridiculous. You're doing something amazing. It's going to have a really big impact. And you're doing it because people really value it. And you've already proven yourself to do this. And this is why you're getting to do it. Like, this is epic. And I'm really glad I had that friend to be like, let's come down to earth a bit. And I think what I was struggling with is how difficult the creative industry is, where people go, well, I think you're worth that. You know, you could put a proposal out and somebody go, well, I think it's worth 3 grand. Or somebody could say, I think it's worth 20 grand. Like, it's very subjective, our work, and it's very difficult with that. And so it's hard not to let that be affected. But as soon as she said that to me, I was really grateful, because it was an important reminder, like, yeah, think about all the great things that are going to come from this. And the reason I was disappointing was the expectation. So if I had 0 expectation, no wedding budget in mind, it wasn't about that, I would have come out of that feeling like, that's actually really great. I'm glad I got that. So I'm learning more and more how important it is for us to detach these expectations that we're setting on ourselves, as well as obviously moving away from society's expectations. So it's a bit of a combination of the internal and the external factors that make us feel either worthy or not worthy enough.
I think that comes full circle back to the things that you're really passionate about and the things that I'm really passionate about, which is being 100% okay with the consequences of being yourself and being proud to be yourself, whether that gives you the opportunities in certain rooms or not. And I think it kind of comes back to what, you know, your whole concept of fuck being humble. It's like, be okay to stand in who you are and ask for the things that you think you deserve and be unapologetic about those things, because the things that you are meant to have, without being woo-woo, I genuinely believe there's no such thing as a missed opportunity. If you're meant to have those things, you will have them, provided you take the action that you need to take in order to get them.
Agree. I totally agree. It's really funny. I'm actually going through a process at the moment where a quite large scale brand has alluded that I am too expensive. And
I love it when they do that.
Yeah, it's a lovely feeling.
Am I too much, or are you not rich enough?
Yeah, essentially. And I spoke to my fiance today, and I told him that I'd got this email, and he said, well, don't shop at Waitrose if you can only afford Aldi.
I love that. Can you please reply that?
I was like, do you know? I was like, so I've told everyone, I've been texting all my girls, I was like, don't shop at Waitrose if you can only afford Aldi. Like, this is my new go-to phrase. I was like, I don't think you realise how iconic that statement is going to be. And it's so true about like that. Don't worry, it's going to be on all social media channels in about 24 hours. But this thing of like, knowing your worth, being able to walk away from things, trusting your gut, trusting that you're worth what it is that you're asking for. It's not easy. Like, you know, it takes one person to say, well, you're higher than the other people we've spoken to, for me to go into am I overcharging? Am I not worth it? Am I not like, I'm a human and we all are. It would be ridiculous to say that we don't have those emotions. I think what I would say on that note though, around like knowing your value and being okay with like not everyone loving it, is that for every person that doesn't love it, there will be someone that really does. And so for every person that does question your value, there'll be someone else who thinks, gosh, that's cheap. You should be charging more. And I have had that as well. So it's a really fine line of like choosing what you absorb from other people. And yeah, I've had people say like, oh, you're expensive. And my question is that, or do you just not have the budget?
Yeah.
Like, a note to any businesses or brands who are hiring contractors or public speakers, please be mindful on that language, because for a lot of people, you and I including, especially as women, we've spent a lot of time building up our courage to ask for our fees. So then when people tell us we're too expensive, it further it further continues that risk or that narrative that we aren't good enough or we're not worthy enough or whatever those feelings
we can't
are.
ask what we think we deserve.
But my favourite quote that I often share is Dermatologica, I can never say that well, the creative director Jane Woolwood said, you've got to be prepared to piss off 80% of people if you want to turn on 20%.
Yeah.
And that was fuck being humble strategy for sure. Like, I know that not everyone's going to love it. In fact, depending on certain rooms, it might be 80% of people who are like, absolutely not for me.
Yeah.
But the 20% of people are going to love it. And they're going to go tell everyone about it. And that will be enough. And I've seen a shift since the pandemic in the response to the message for sure. But I think, that early resilience, learning that not everyone's going to love you and that's fine. Like when you accept that, I think you do behave more honestly, more freely, and you do worry less about what people think.
And it's so true to like how I think about things as well. It's like, just fucking post it. Like,
just
you're
brilliant
fucking
at it.
Do it.
You're so good at like sharing clips that are just like,
I just
very
don't
unapologetic.
care. But the thing is, actually, that's not true. I do care. I care about what people think about my character. Like, you've met me a couple of times now. I'd be deeply upset if you were like, I don't really like her very much.
It was a bit awkward.
Well, funny you should say.
I'm joking.
Taxi. No, but like that would upset me.
Yeah, no, for sure. I totally agree.
But if someone seen my content and goes, I think I don't agree with you, I don't like it, I'm like, great. I think there is so much power in being disliked. And I think we are deeply ingrained, particularly as women, to be please, like, make everyone happy with who we are and people please and get that validation from others going, well done, like, you're good enough.
Yeah.
When actually you cannot expect to be loved by the people that do matter if you don't accept that you're going to be hated in many ways by the people that don't. And that is true of everything. That job that want to undercut you, not for you. Those clients that are trying to pay you $5,000 less than what you've asked for, they're not for you. The ones that are right and the ones that will help you get into the rooms that you deserve to be in, whether it be in your career or a stage or whatever, will see what you're worth because there is an alignment.
Yeah.
It's like Asda and, you use the example of Waitrose and Aldi. Some people would go, oh, I'd never shop at Waitrose. But it's because you're not their audience.
Yeah.
I personally like shopping at Sainsbury's because that is the supermarket that I particularly like. That doesn't mean that all the others are shit or wrong or cheap or expensive. It's just it's not my personal choice.
But I think as individuals, we often take things so personally, and we just absorb like, well, I must be the problem. So like,
how do you balance that, by the way? Because I feel like for me, we were talking about this on the podcast this week actually. Sophie came on. It was her day 4, and I was like, "You're coming on my podcast." She was like, "Okay, welcome to Clout." And we were talking about how, like, in order to build a successful person, we've talked about the context of personal branding, but I think it's relevant here. You need to emotionally detach yourself from that. So like, it's not that, Stef's brand is different to who she is as a person, or Amelia's brand is different to who she is as a person, but there is an emotional detachment that comes from, I don't give a shit whether Lee from, Stevenage doesn't like what I have to say because Lee doesn't know me. So the emotion doesn't connect. Whereas if you said like, oh, I think you're like, da-da-da, I'd be like, oh my God, you know me, because there is an emotional connection.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was actually talking about it this morning, and I mentioned it a few times on the podcast before, but I got slammed in the Financial Times. So this journalist—
I feel like you should frame it.
I didn't even want to buy the paper, to be honest. I don't think it even made it into print. I think it was an online article. But the article the title read, "Why Shameless Self-Promoters Aren't Welcome in My Inbox." And then she wrote 3 paragraphs about me. And she hadn't attended my events.
Great bit of self-promotion.
She hadn't read my book. She hadn't met me, spoke to my customers, all those things. And I was really upset, obviously. It was 3 months into running Fuck Being Humble. And I'd had so much positive excitement that this was the first, like, oh, I'm going to get you there. And I remember calling my dad and I was in floods of tears, and like, he was very supportive and he was great. And then my sister called me later that day and she was like, "How are you feeling?" I was like, "She's just not my demographic." And she burst out laughing. She's like, "You've done quite a quick, like, full circle. You seem to have picked yourself up quite quickly." And I was like, "But the truth is she isn't. And I can't, if she doesn't get it, then I can't spend my time on her." Like, my message resonates with people and they get it immediately and they want it straight away. for the people that doesn't happen with, that's okay. I'll see you when you need the message, or maybe you never will. Like, it's okay. I'm not in the world of convincing people. And maybe at the start of my career, maybe at the start of Fuck Being Humble, I was trying to justify it. And I would be in rooms, particularly with older men when I was younger, and sort of being like, oh, I run this thing called Fuck Being Humble. And then being like, oh, well, I remember someone saying, I actually believe in being humble, so I'm just gonna go over there, and like completely just walked away from it. It was like such a shutdown. I remember feeling so shook by it. But then you meet someone and they're like, oh my God, that's what, no one's ever said that to me. I've needed to hear that my entire life. And it is such a pivot of like, yeah, why would I waste my energy on people that I'm having to spend more energy on convincing people, which is taking me away from serving the people that already get it and need the help. So I think it's balancing that. But I don't think I'm fully emotionally detached. I think maybe you have a better approach to that, because I definitely, I've definitely had lots of unsolicited advice, comments, feedback in my social media posts and stuff like that. And it does affect me. Like I'm quite direct, open and brave with the stuff that I share. But I am also quite worried about what people say, can be a people pleaser, would hate to be cancelled and those things. So I definitely balance that. I guess what I've realised recently in the content I've been sharing is the things that resonate with people the most are when I'm showing what I'm teaching. And there are...
Show, don't tell.
It is. And I presented that this morning actually to a client, and I was sort of saying this, like, when people feel like you're making yourself a guinea pig and you're making yourself vulnerable and you're exposing yourself, they are so much more willing to back you, be excited by, like, oh my God, you did that. That's actually really scary and quite cool that you did that, versus me just telling them how to do it, or like me trying to position myself as an expert. The way that I've been emotionally connecting with people, especially from people who may not normally respond to the message, is by putting myself in situations where they have a level of empathy, or they think, whoa, I could never do that. But that's really amazing that you did that. And it's quite interesting watching people who may not have normally been in my orbit or have been attracted to the message, but have seen me approach my work in a more relatable or maybe not relatable way that has actually built trust with those naysayers. So I've been enjoying watching the onboarding of different types of fans and followers that may not fit the traditional type of who it would normally immediately resonate with, because I'm experimenting with how I channel my personal brand.
It is really funny, actually, because I always talk about this, about how you need to find the human connection.
Yeah.
And some of my best performing content is not about personal branding. It's about my fuck ups and like what I've done wrong and like how I've tried something and it didn't go so well, like marriage, for example. But those are the things that give you the most resonance with people, because they all have a version of that. And I think what you're kind of getting at so beautifully there is the reason why these people are coming into your orbit who otherwise wouldn't, is because they're seeing themselves in your content in a way that you might not necessarily be trying to display, but is coming off because there is a vulnerability there, and we can all relate to being scared or not doing so well, or trying something and it not going as well as it could have done, or even just doing something different. Everyone has a version of that in their life, and that's what creates that resonance with people and therefore want to follow you and kind of support you.
I think also, like, every brand should have more than its name. So people can judge me on my name. Absolutely, go for it. Fuck Being Humble. God, that sounds awful, doesn't it? I'm fine with that. But when you then look at the multiple layers to my business of the amount of people I've helped, the campaigns I've run, the support systems that I offer to people, the products that I've launched, the campaigning, the connection I've had with people, I'm like to hope that at least one of those things would strike up an emotional response from someone in a positive way. And again, if it doesn't, absolutely fine. But I know I'm doing lots of different things to help people in many different ways. And if you judge me on the name Fuck Being Humble, that's actually your loss, that you didn't take a step further to actually understand what the business is about and to benefit like all the other people have.
I think what you do is so needed. I think particularly in today's society where one of the amazing things about social media is that it's given people a platform.
Yeah.
And I've benefited from that. You've benefited from that. I love it. But I also think the flip side of that is people in real life don't have the same confidence in many ways as they have online, and therefore are missing out on opportunities. And I feel like your message resonates with me so much, because I think having confidence, or pretending that you've got the confidence, at least in the beginning, to ask for things and even ask for help. Like when I was younger, I would never have asked anyone for help, because I was like, I have to do this myself. Because if I don't do it myself, then I'm in some way worse than everyone else. And like it has to be done.
Yeah.
I think that is something we need to teach in schools. Like, where was the lessons about like self-belief and self-promotion and asking for help, asking for mentors, asking for a pay rise, asking for, okay, well, you told me if I would do this and I did that, and then that did, like, where's that? Because that is a much more important skill than fucking algebra.
It's a huge gap. It's a huge gap in the
I actually think it's the number
system.
one thing actually that impacts every single person in this room's and world's life is confidence.
Yeah. And self-belief. I think it's so important. And I was laughing with a friend the other day about doing general studies and how we intentionally flunked it at A-levels so that we could go spend our time on more important things, whether that be a job that we were actually learning on, or whether it was investing in the studies that we were most interested in. But yeah, why there wasn't, you know, job prep, CV prep, interview prep. I do a lot of guest lecturing at universities. This week I've actually been speaking at Graduate Fashion Week, helping all the shortlisted students, give them a big pep talk before they go in the rooms and they share their work to be judged by the judges. And it's been so interesting seeing them, like, bag of nerves, not knowing, like, it was great. Apparently it was like every day it was the most attended session. They all really wanted the help. They needed it, but they don't. What's really unfortunate for Gen Z and is it Alpha?
Alpha, yeah.
Yeah. Is that they did miss out on a lot of the socializing side of things, which is where you build a lot of confidence and communication
resilience
skills
as well.
I also have a theory that a lot of them might not have done a crappy Saturday job like many millennials and previous generations did.
I got fired for my first job.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some hilarious first job stories, but that's also where you build resilience.
Yeah.
It's where you learn that you have to do crap things. It's where
boring things.
But yeah, you have to. So I used to work at Barrett's Shoes. Awful destination, really. And if you didn't, literally, if you didn't sell the shoe care, which was like the suede protection stuff, you had to hoover the shop floor. And I was awful at doing shoe care. So every week I was hoovering the shop floor. And I remember being like, this is too much. I'm not doing this anymore. I was not putting this planet over the shop floor. On minimum wage as well, like £3
Back
an
then
hour.
It was like £4.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I remember like researching all of the shoe care and being like, I'm going to be a best seller. And I did actually eventually get much better at selling. But I think a lot of these moments at this early stages, so from 16 to 21, then they've missed out on those things. So then they're going straight into a workplace that does feel quite intimidating and scary. Expecting with previous generations, expecting them to have a better understanding in this space. Yeah. And I actually don't blame them that they don't. And a lot of people's mental health was affected. So I could see parents not pushing them to go get those Saturday jobs, or not pushing them to leave their room if they prefer gaming. And, you know, so I can see some of the reasons why people's confidence, it's actually getting worse in this space. Agree. Whilst I think we have a generation of influencers and people who love spotlighting their life, I think we also have a big group of people that are really not confident, and they are a bag of nerves, and these career defining moments will continue to be difficult unless we help. So I'm really passionate about supporting that age group. I do a lot of work with the Prince's Trust, working with people from disadvantaged areas and who haven't had access to higher education and things like that, because it's really hard when you don't have people telling you, what do you want to be? You know, you could do anything.
Taking an interest in your life.
Really taking an interest. And some of my most favorite work when I get to do that, because it feels like if we can help them at the earlier stages, we'll see less imposter syndrome. Yeah. We'll see less of the gender pay gap. We'll see less of people going into poverty and these things that we're seeing, because they had somebody say to them at that point, I believe that you could do any of these things. Yeah. And it's so important. And I think self-belief is so representative or so empowered by the people you have around you. And I know I've been really fortunate to have like a dad who thinks I'm like the best person in the world, along with my other siblings. My partner is incredibly supportive. I have an army of WhatsApp chats with cheerleaders and groups that support me. I have like my work wives. Like I know recently I've really seen how much that support allows me to be as brave as I am.
What advice would you give to someone who doesn't have that but wants it?
Don't settle with your current network. So when I moved to London, I didn't know anyone. I was literally from Leeds. I lived in Manchester. I had my 3 uni mates who were all partnered off. So they, you know, I saw them when they weren't hanging out with their partners, which is a very classic thing. And I didn't know anybody. I joined a startup with 2 bosses, no other employees. So I didn't even have work friends. And I was like, I don't want to sit around and be lonely. I don't want to do this. So, I mean, London in particular, incredible networking events. Just get out there every time. Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, just go put yourself in these spaces. You can't meet people unless you're in rooms with them.
Don't let that define you. Like, I think it's so easy for people to be like, well, I'm an introvert. I can't do that.
I'm ready to like ban those words altogether because I believe an introvert is actually a better networker than an extrovert because they won't go into the room talking about themselves, right? I talk about this I have a networking workshop and a chapter in my book where I talk about the fact that you're more likely to ask questions about other people and better pitch yourself at the end of it than the extrovert who's like, give me the mic. And I know because I'm an extrovert and I used to be that person, so I can speak very confidently on that topic. But yeah, I think it is really important to never accept what you've got. And even to this day, I still add people into my network every week, every month, every year, because why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Like we live in a world where we're so interconnected. We have all these digital tools. We can travel more freely. There's so many great things. And so I keep adding these incredible people that are helping me expand, or I see things differently, or just putting in a favor for me here and there. And I think, yeah, networking in person, sliding into people's DMs, 100%.
That is my favorite thing.
It's like how I would say 80% of my network is sliding into people's DMs.
100%. I have a rule at the minute where I'm like, I need to send 7 messages a day.
Yes.
Seven like connection requests a day on LinkedIn.
Sophie Miller from Pretty Little Marketing says that.
Does she?
6 connections a day.
Yes, I'm doing 7 a day. I am sending 3 messages to ask for coffees a week. So, and the idea being that I will meet at least one new person in real life every single week.
Great.
And I've kind of worked out that's roughly what I need to do. 7 connection requests, 3 messages.
That's
equals
great.
One thing. And I've been doing that now for a couple of weeks. And some of the conversations, some of the people I'm meeting are like mental.
Yeah.
And I know I'm obviously doing it strategic because I want these people in my network and I think that I can benefit them, but I also think they can benefit me and they're nice people and like all of those things. But I know long term, them knowing me and me knowing them is going to be fabulous. So whether it be that they need some help with what we do, or whether I just spoke to a CEO yesterday who I've known for 2 years, never met, but like connected with 2 years ago. And he was like, yeah, cool, I can help you with that. Boom, 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 boom. Speak to this person, speak to this person. And I was like, I would never have had that opportunity to ask that particular person who was the perfect person to ask had I not been connected to him for the last 2 years.
So there's the concept of weak ties and strong ties. And strong ties are people who are your inner circle. Yeah. They should have already helped you by promoting your business or posting it on LinkedIn or whatever. But they actually only have a certain amount of reach because they would have done it already if they could get you that client or they could get you that job, right? So then weak ties, the next level of people who maybe you have met once or you've been connected with them on LinkedIn for 3 years, but you've only ever liked each other's posts. They're the people that I'm noticing at the moment that are showing up
They'll
for
advocate
me.
for you.
And I talk about it in my sessions, but also in the book as well, where I say, like, I used to go to network events and look at people's name badges and be like, not senior enough, can't speak to you, like, because I was looking to get budgets for projects when I was, and actually, as soon as I realized that it was actually easier to build connections with people who are on my level or more junior, and they were more likely to go put in that request or support me than the more senior person, because the more senior person's busy, was when I started to realize, like, don't judge people by their titles or by a cover, right? So it's that classic thing of you know, even I will make the effort to meet people who would be like, oh, I'm fangirling you right now. Yeah. Because there may not be an obvious exchange, but almost every interaction I've had recently with a weak tie, someone's like, oh, I could hook you up with that person. Yeah. Like there's like a genuine appreciation for and they my want to time. Help you. They want to help. Yeah. And likewise, they know that me sparing my time and or offering them in return is beneficial to them. So I think never settle for that network. You can digitally network so well at the moment. And I think ask for instructions.
Yeah, I agree.
We do not do this enough, where you say to people like, I can see you're connected with someone. If you'd be open to it, I'd be really keen to speak to them. You know, I'm looking to get an introduction into this space, or I'm looking to get a mentor. Cindy Gallop says it where she's like, don't ask me to keep an eye out for jobs. She's like, it's too general. Ask for an introduction to the woman at Microsoft who looks after the jobs.
Yeah.
Because I will do that one action in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But if you ask me to constantly always be looking, why would I do that? Like, that's a lot of my energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I honestly believe, like, I came to London with 0 contacts, and I have the most incredible network now that I know I can call up with any help or anything that I need, and people will help me immediately. And because I give back to them as well, but I think we can hold on to narratives of like, well, I'm not from here, or I can't do this, or whatever it is, when actually more people want to help than you think.
And that is a really important point to kind of, I think, hammer home. Is a lot of people think I can't ask because what if someone says no? I've never asked for anything from anyone and had someone say no, ever.
I did a post on this recently where I met up with a woman in PR, and she said, you know, I'm always really keen to hear people's pitches, but for once it would be really nice if they offered me something in return. I was like, that's a really good insight, because I've sent loads of press releases to journalists before, but I've never said, can I do this for you or whatever? And I did a post on this, and I sort of gave some examples, like, say you wanted 30 minutes time with me, offer to buy my book for 10 quid and write an Amazon review, because that helps me as a business owner. Or, you know, people have asked me to speak on events before, and they're like, I haven't got any budget. Like, even if you bought like a £50 facial voucher, it shows that you do value me and my time. I'm not asking for loads. So like, a lot of the time, especially businesses asking you to work for free, my fee is not free, by the way.
I hate that. I had that really. So I met up with this, by the way, multi-million pound company recently. They wanted me to, spoke about personal branding. They really bought in, did the whole presentation, whatever. I get an email from their CEO saying, oh, we're doing our sales kickoff. Like, would you mind coming in and speaking to the guys? I was like, yeah, no problem. My fees is what it is. And he goes, oh, I thought you could like come and do it as a favor. And I said, no, that's my fee. And he goes, oh, big difference between a big corporate and, startup. And I said, I appreciate
No way.
And I said, I appreciate your position. I hope you understand mine. And that was the last time I heard from them.
When I get asked to do free work, I say I'm not currently in a place to be accepting free work. Like I'm prioritizing.
And I love that you do that.
I say I'm prioritizing paid opportunities.
Yeah,
right
that
now.
is the best way to do it as well, because it's like a really politically correct way of being like.
And certain jobs I do for free, like full disclosure, whether it's like,
well, it's fame, fortune, fun, right? Like those are the buckets that I put
100%.
thing into. Like I need to get paid. I have a fucking mortgage. I've got a team. I've got kids. Like all that kind of stuff. But also there are some things that I want to do. Like I'm doing an event later on this year that I'm like, oh my God, bite your arm off for that.
Yeah.
Would you mind like covering my travel and stuff?
Yeah.
But then I'm there with disco pants on. Like no worries.
That's the thing about like, it's thinking about if you can't afford or you can't offer things, like what else can you do in
What's
return?
the value exchange?
No one is too small to be able to help someone with something.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. Like, there's lots of ways that you can show your appreciation for people's time.
Yeah.
And going in with nothing is not that
a bit
appealing.
opportunist.
Yeah. And it's not to say that, you could of course still have a chat with me, and I'm not expecting you to give me a voucher, but I'm just saying
it shows an appreciation, doesn't it? Which means you're much more amenable to want to help.
I think it's that reminder of like what that PR lady, like sometimes it'd be nice if someone offered me something in return. And I thought that's, so really when you're speaking to people that are often asked to give, actually what are you giving them
in return? Yeah.
I think it's a really important thing to remember.
One of the things that I say to people is if they're DMing mentors or like they're wanting to get someone to come on their podcast or whatever, just say, I'll pay for your time or I'll buy you a coffee, because no one ever is going to say, yeah, pay me.
Yeah.
Ever. But they will see like, oh, wow, okay, cool. This person does really respect the 15 minutes that I'm going to give them. So yeah, I think I absolutely believe that. And I think it's how you make people feel that's the most important thing.
For sure.
I could talk to you forever. And honestly, I feel like there's about 20 to 30 minutes left of what we should be talking about. I'm getting nod from my producer going, can you please hurry the fuck up? Because we need to cut that time. One of the things that I ask everyone, I'm going to ask you in a second, because there's one more thing I want to ask, which is about your second book. I think now is a great opportunity while we wrap things up.
So I'm not sure how much I'm actually meant to be speaking about it yet.
Could you give us a little exclusive?
Of course, I can give you an insight to what it's around, which is Fuck Being Humble was the book that helped you knock down doors, network, promote, get what you deserve, all of that. But what happens when you get into your career and it's not what you expected.
I love that.
So this is looking at
Volume 2.
Volume 2, and it's quite interesting because it's coming at a time, the brand is growing with me and where I'm at life. And so this isn't my lived experience, but a lot of friends around me are deeply unhappy in their career. And it's not about pay rises, it's not about promotions, it's actually about wrong choice and misalignment, and knowing that even if I keep going with this, I still won't be happy. And so, you know, what I've realized is the business was built on being overlooked and undervalued, unappreciated, and I want to get more money and I want to be networking, all of that. And I've built that and I've been doing that now. Now what I'm observing is as I'm moving into the next decade of my career and as we continue to, what are these obstacles? And these obstacles are, like, how do you find work that works for you? What does that look and feel like?
I love that sentence you just said.
So
that is a fucking soundbite.
It's the subline.
How do you find work that works for you?
That's the subline of the book. So I won't release the title, but that is what we're looking at is, whether you're working full time, whether you are working at a company, whether you're running your own business, what do we need to, there's a 3-part model on what you can do and adopt to help you enjoy the work that you do for the rest of your life. And
which should be the priority.
Yeah, I think so. My thing is, for the first 10 years of your career, you're a little bitch. Right? You are busy earning your stripes, trying to get approval, trying to seek all this thing. What happens when you're moving into your 30s, going into 40s, your life is changing, what you want is changing, but you haven't changed your behaviors to get the right things. And I guess, so Fuck Being Humble was very inspired by everyone around me. So one of my best friends is a procrastinating perfectionist, which is one of the part of the books. And, there was a lot of inspiration. I always observe human behavior, and the people around me have formed a lot of my brand. This is, part 2, 6 years into running Fuck Being Humble now. It's like, it's that next chapter and decade of life of what does everything look and feel like, and how can we get closer to the career we want? And it's been a really interesting one. It's going to be a collection of real stories and real people that have worked through that. But it's great. It's a classic thing though of, I pitched the idea, was told, okay, go make the proposal, and I just had huge amounts of imposter syndrome. Classic. It was hilarious. I couldn't write. I felt really off with it. I was just like, I know this is great and it's got potential, but I don't know, something stopping me. And it was really interesting because over the last 6 years running Fuck Being Humble, I have really developed as a public speaker. I know I've got better. I know I've got slicker presentations. I know all that, but I haven't developed myself as a writer. So I got an opportunity to write the book, did the book, and I don't really write articles. I've written the odd article here, like as a guest writer here or there, but it's not a part of my life that I've developed. So of course, going back into this again, it is huge imposter syndrome. And this time, I haven't got the naivety of not knowing what to expect. I know how hard writing a book is, and it's not a natural thing that comes to me. This is going to be a struggle. This is going to be a 6-month struggle of getting this book written, because it's pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and it is not the skills that I was naturally born with, shall we say, or that I get to execute that regularly. And so it's felt really scary and hard, and I've been delaying it starting. And then publishers are like, how are we getting on? And I'm like, it's coming. But I also think I've had some personal stuff going on behind the scenes, as well as having extremely busy work period. And I haven't had the capacity to. And capacity is such an important thing to keep reflecting on. It's quite literally, if I'd have started writing sooner than now, I'd be churning out bad stuff. Yeah. And I'd be doubting myself even more. Yeah. And I've been giving myself the grace and the space to get the stuff I need to get done, look after myself behind the scenes. And when I have capacity, which is as of next week and the rest of the summer, I will be able to approach this in a lot more confident mindset. And I'm feeling that now. So it's just a really important reminder, I think, of like, yeah, I haven't kept building this writer side of me. So yeah, I do feel massive imposter syndrome again doing this. And it's going to be a struggle. I've got to figure this out around my business and all these things. And I'm always going to want to prioritize things I enjoy more, for sure. But it's just like fuck being humble was, it's bigger than me and it's bigger than my ego and it's bigger than, oh, what if everyone doesn't love it and all of these things. It's like, this will hopefully be a really strong legacy piece that will go on to help more people and could possibly reach more people because it's more of a universal message.
One of the things I think the more successful you become in whatever, however you want to define that, I feel like the more imposter syndrome you get sometimes. I think there is a bit of a misconception that like people who are at the top of their game are like really confident in everything they do. And actually a lot of people that I've met who are unbelievably successful are quite often the most insecure about certain aspects of their life. One of the things that really helped me when I still do have moments of like shit, self-doubt, whatever, is whenever I feel like I have that imposter syndrome or self-doubt, I'm like, I'm doing the right thing. Because that's my body going, we're really scared by this because this is new and different and we're not as good as we could be. I'm like, that means I'm on the right path. Yeah. Like I need to do this because of that, not do it because of that.
Yeah. And I also think like, there's a really great thing is like, do you want your tombstone to read, had lots of ideas but never did them? And I like that, hearing that, I remember
or
just being
lived
like,
fucking life.
Yeah, no, you know what I mean? Like it is like, and I feel like it would be such a sad world. And I actually realized recently that, like I said earlier, my best content is coming from me putting out my ideas, because I'm putting them out and then I'm learning about rejection, or I'm learning about fear of failure, or I'm learning about not being able to speak to strangers when I was in New York and all these things.
That was a great post, by the way. If you haven't seen that, you need to go and check it out, about you being in New York and not wanting to speak to strangers.
Yeah, I didn't want to go up to strangers because I was too scared, which you wouldn't hear from a confident person normally. But I think, what I'm connecting and what I'm putting out is so much more valuable because I'm actually having the courage to put some ideas out in the first place, experience what that feels like, and then turn that into a story that people can connect with. Whereas just saying this is how and this is what, it's just not that appealing. People want to hear stories of how you are doing things. And the book one is just going to be, I can already feel it's going to be full of stories, because for my own learnings and for my own channels and all this, because it is absolutely not something I'm feeling comfortable with right now, but I've got to see how I work through it. And there's last time I had 8 months around a full-time job, so I wrote every Saturday and that was how I did it. This time I've got to plan my own schedule. I've got loads of other stuff, like it's a different beast to climb, mountain to climb, beast to tackle, challenge, whatever it is. Any of those things. So yeah, it'll be an interesting journey.
I'm so excited. I can't wait for it to come out. Last question, and I ask everyone this question. I always say just fucking post it. That's my die on a hill thing. What is your die on a hill thing?
Oh, what a great. I guess my new one that I'm floating around and I'm saying a lot is, don't wait to be invited, invite yourself.
I love that. I love that. That really reminds me of Seth Godin. He says, reject the tyranny of being picked and pick your damn self.
Yeah. And I said that at the NatWest event that we met at. So that event was all around a talk about leaning into the discomfort. And I said, when I wanted to be a public speaker, I didn't wait for people to book me. I made my own stage and booked myself.
Yeah.
When I wanted to make Forbes Under 30, I didn't wait for someone to nominate me. I nominated myself and made it for 28. And when I wanted Paris Hilton to hold my book and me get a photo of her, I flew to New York, I stalked her around Adweek, and I got a photo of Paris Hilton holding my book. And that message is really landing at the moment of like, don't wait to be invited, invite yourself, because if you don't take up space, someone else will take your place. And that someone else could be shitter.
And get paid more.
Yeah, literally.
I love that so much. Steph, thank you so much. I feel like I should be like, Steph fucking Sword Williams. Like, like Serena is like Serena fucking Kerrigan. I don't know if you've seen her. I love her stuff so much. Thank you so much for being on the Branded Podcast. This has been a long time.
Thank you so much. I've loved our chat.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I absolutely love doing these podcasts, and I would be able to reach a hell of a lot more people if you like and subscribe. So thank you to all of you who have already liked and subscribed. And if you haven't, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review so we can reach more people.